Good evening, everybody. I'm Bob Ferguson, if you don't know me already. First of all, I want to apologize because I've tried starting this a few times and my dog's being real needy and barking. So if I have to pause to just put her outside, I apologize in advance. So hopefully she stays quiet. So what am I actually doing here? You guys, if you know me, you know that I push these calendars every year for conservation. So I'm starting this new idea here, and we'll see how it does, called Conservation Conversations. And really, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you all about the imperiled pine snake or that, but what I do want to do is share a few fun stories. I'm going to use the calendars as a guide. I'm going to do a different calendar every night. And when I sell these, this money, every cent goes to conservation. So that's what it's about. But I want this to be fun. I don't want to sit here and tell you all about, oh, this is going to go extinct and that's going to go extinct and they're going to log 3 square miles of trees over the next 2 hours. Let's put that all aside. We know there's problems in the world. The bottom line is that any of these calendars that are bought, all of the profits go to conservation. The last few years, this is my 8th year. The last few years they've gone to the Rainforest Trust. Just last year I donated almost $6,600. Thanks to you guys, thanks to everybody's support. I obviously cannot do it without you. I'm not buying my own calendars. So that's kind of the history on me. It's it's a passion of mine, and I'm not trying to act like I'm some sort of hero or martyr. I love finding this stuff in the wild. I live for it. I dream about it constantly. It's something I can't shake. It's an addiction, really. That said, I want to put my efforts into something bigger than me and feel like I've left a positive mark on the earth when I leave it. So I try to live well every single day. I'm gonna try and sit here by my fake fire. So I got this little setup. I know it's corny, but whatever, I'm doing it. So we're gonna get started. I'll give you details afterwards. We'll save all that for the end. Let's just have fun with this, right? So I'm offering 12 calendars this year, right? And we're gonna start with the Snakes of the New Jersey Pine Barrens. This is my OG calendar. This is the first calendar I sold 8 years ago when I decided to do this. I can take you back to then, and I had a strong case of imposter syndrome. I told myself, your pictures aren't good enough. Nobody's gonna buy your calendars. They're gonna make fun of you. They're gonna laugh at you. Here comes the dog. And you gotta go right now. No. But I decided, you know what, so what? It's something I believe in. I want to donate money to, at that year, it was the Pinelands Preservation Alliance. So, really, right now, so, I'm losing my train of thought. But I went ahead and I did it, and I acted on my idea, and I'm glad I did, because over the last 8 years, we've ended up saving over 20,000 acres of land, and that just saves so much. Bear with me. I'm gonna put my dog outside real quick, then we're gonna get into the calendar. Come on, let's go. Come on, outside, come on. Sorry about that, guys. I swear she wanted absolutely nothing to do with me until I set up the camera. So let's get started. I'm just gonna share some stories. I think I can see some people on here. So if you have any questions about anything, it could be anything snake related, or it could be, yeah, I know, she just started. Or anything with the calendars, whatever, ask away. This is what this is for. I'm just gonna share some stories that I believe are fun, and some of my favorites, and we'll talk a little bit about the snakes. So we're gonna start with the OG calendar, Snakes of the New Jersey Pine Barrens. You have the iconic northern pine snake. I'll talk about that when we get into the calendar. So January, and I don't do this. My whole shtick has been to throw out teaser photos. People would ask me, well, what's in the calendar? And I'd always tell them, well, you got to buy it to see. And that was kind of my deal. And I've been doing that for 8 years, and you know, people are probably thinking that I'm being a jerk about it or whatever. Let's do something new. Let's share some stories. So here we go. Making sure it's not upside down. Eastern worm snake. Cool little snake, about 12 inches long. This is definitely bigger than the real life version. They're fossorial snakes. I call these guys one of the Pine Barrens trifecta. It's 3 snakes you find the most. You have all these people that dream about finding these great snakes in the Pine Barrens, and they get here and they find 3 snakes. This is going to be one of them. You find this by flipping trash. You find this by flipping chunks of concrete. There's no rocks in the coastal plain, not naturally anyway. You find it by flipping other people's debris, basically, and logs, I guess. Really cool little snake, harmless, does not bite, will poop on you. If you were to hold it, it can stab. It's got a little sharp end to its tail that stabs into you. I feel like that's a defense mechanism. It startles you, it doesn't hurt. But I could see if it was somebody picking this thing up, it could startle them if they didn't know any better. So Eastern worm snake, I don't have any great stories about these guys because if I want to go find them, I just go flip trash. Some days it takes longer than others. Some days you can find a dozen. All right, let's move on to February. All right, February is a good one. An Eastern king snake. Now, these aren't endemic to the pines or not like a Pine Barren specialty. I do count them as one of the big shots in the pines because I can't find them here in Pennsylvania. I will say this, out of all of the snakes in the Pine Barrens, as much as I herp, I see this one the absolute least. I don't know if it's because of my herping patterns for the year. Maybe I don't walk enough cranberry bogs, maybe I don't flip enough tin near water, but for whatever reason, I see these at least. I feel like the best year I've ever had in the Barrens was 4 king snakes. This year I found 2, and I tried. So, awesome snake. They call them king snakes because their preferred diet are other snakes. They like to hang around the water. There's probably an abundance of garters and ribbons and water snakes that they can just chow away. They will eat other things, but snakes are their preference. Big bodied snakes, they are completely harmless. Personality, snakeanality, sometimes they bite, sometimes they don't. I find that if you know how to handle them correctly, you're not going to get bit. Now, not all snakes follow the rules. You're not supposed to handle these in Jersey, but let's say you're in another state and you need to move one off the road, or you just enjoy holding snakes. I'm not the law. In Jersey, you're not supposed to hold them. Let's move on. I don't know how I'm getting so mixed up on a calendar. To March. My absolute favorite snake to look for in the Pine Barrens. Coastal Plains milk snakes. One of the most highly debated, highly loved snakes, probably in the country. We have milk snakes here, we have Easterns. I'm not gonna get into species and genus and DNA here, that's not what this is for. People love these snakes. A lot of them retain the high red into adulthood. This was a smaller guy, maybe a foot, but I've seen 3.5 footers with a lot of red in them, and they're different than the Easterns. Easterns, they have red as babies, and as they grow old, they kind of turn into more earth tone neutral colors, browns, tans, everything in between. Gorgeous in their own right, but Coastal Plains milks, I mean, you add red to a snake and people are just flabbergasted, including me. It's one of my favorite snakes to find. It's one of the hardest snakes to find. If you know what you're doing, that's no guarantee that you're gonna find them. And trust me, the methods to find these are the least fun. For example, I'll get into it real quick. Contractors dump crap in the Pine Barrens. It's unfortunate. That said, snakes love it. So you go flipping shingle piles and you're flipping through shingles and there's roaches and there's rusty nails. These snakes love it because I guess there's just different levels they can thermoregulate. They're safe, they're tight. It's everything a snake wants, basically. It even provides food sometimes for them. So it's an absolute miserable way to herp. But when you're flipping through shingles and you see this flash of red before your eyes, it's what I live for. It's like a nonstop treasure hunt. These are one of the targeted snakes I go for in the pines every year. I think this year I found eight individuals. And that's actually a pretty average year for me. Next up, the Pine Barrens' only venomous snake, the timber rattlesnake, or affectionately known as the pine break, because they do look a little different than their montane counterparts, and they're not quite cane breaks down in the south. Now, your uncle or your uncle's friend or your best friend's brother's cousin's mom might tell you that there are water moccasins or cottonmouths or copperheads in the Pine Barrens. That is absolutely false. The only venomous snake in the Pine Barrens is a timber rattlesnake. Now, one, how do you know it's a rattlesnake? It's got a rattle. That said, the smaller ones can have very small rattles, and the babies can have little buttons that if you're not a snake nerd like me, you're not gonna know. If you cannot confidently identify a snake, the best plan of action is to enjoy it from a distance and then walk around. Timbers are so docile and they do not want to bite you. No snake wants to bite you. Every snake you see just wants you to go away. You know, I might talk about snake personality when you hold them and stuff, but like that's really just putting human characteristics onto a snake. The snake just wants you to leave it alone. So that's very easy with a timber because you can just walk around. It's not going to chase you. It's not fast. It may crawl towards you because snakes are dumb. It is not looking to harm you. I have a good friend who does talks, and I'm going to give props to her because I'm stealing this from her, but it's a great example. It's like, okay, a snake might bite you, right? But it's not going out of its way to bite you. Think about it this way. If you're in your kitchen, right, and a bear comes in and wants to attack you, and this might be unfair to bears, but I'm just looking for something that could kill you, basically. A bear wants to attack you, or it's just sitting there. Say it's sitting there, it finds honey. Are you going to go over there and bite the bear? No, you're going to sit there, shit your pants, and hope the bear leaves, right? Now, if the bear comes to you and starts grabbing you, you're going to do everything in your ability to save your life, whether that's biting or crapping all over it like these snakes do. Whatever you got to do, that's the way snakes are. They're not out to get you. So yeah, timbers can be scary and people are scared of the unknown, and I get it. I'm not asking you to love snakes like me if you're watching this. All I'm asking you to do is leave them be. That's all. Nobody needs to be taking shovels or sticks to snakes. Just leave them be in their environment, in the wild, to do their job. So, timbers. Also, timbers are a favorite, of course. But I just kind of just lectured you guys on that. So, we're going to move on. Number 5. Black rat snake. Or now it's called an eastern rat snake. I hope you guys can see this with the light. I tried to set up the light good in here. We're going to call it a black rat snake because common names are common names. You can call it whatever you want, really. It's a Pantherophis alleghaniensis if you want to get dorky. I don't have a racer in here. Racers are actually snake number 2 of the Pine Barrens trifecta, and I had racers in there last year. So we're going to go with the rat snake. These aren't very common in the core pines. You do find them in the core pines, but really they become more numerous on the outskirts, what I call like the fringe areas where it's not so dry and xeric or sandy. Like the soil's a little bit more mixed. For whatever reason, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. This is just my experience, but I have a lot of experience. I'm like I said, I'm out there like twice a week for the past 15 years. So black rat snakes. Our largest snake, I shouldn't say largest, I'm sure there's some pines that can weigh pretty heavy, but our longest snake in the whole Northeast and in the Pine Barrens, these guys, you know, they can regularly get to 6 feet, but you can find some 7.5 foot monsters out there. Really cool, docile snakes, really good with humans. Normally, they can gape. Sometimes they'll bite. It's not a big deal. All their teeth are small. It's nothing to worry about, really. It's a non-event. I see people who are scared of snakes running and tripping on things and like hurting themselves more than any of these non-venomous snakes could have ever possibly did to them. I tell people when I'm out in the woods, if I'm wearing shorts, my legs are 100 times more damaged from thorns and branches than a little snake bite, a 6 foot snake is going to do to you, at least in our area. So another, you know, maybe dangerous or scary looking snake, that's harmless, as they all are. These guys are good climbers too. Love to eat birds. Northern scarlet snake. Can you see that? This is probably the prettiest snake on the East Coast. Now, snake aficionados might argue because they have biases and favorites, but like if you knew nothing of snakes and I laid out this calendar to you, I would almost bet that most people would pick this or maybe a corn snake as the prettiest snake. And we have it right in our backyard. Super, super hard to find. If it weren't for my bad luck with king snakes, this would be the snake I see the least of because they're super fossorial in nature. Fossorial means that they're down in the sand. You really need a lot of factors at play to be lucky enough to find them. That said, when you do, it's like a gem. They're red. They got a little, you can't really see from this. These aren't field guide shots, so, but it's got an orange head. They have little pointy noses. It's good for digging into the sand. It's good for, they're huge egg eaters. So when turtles and lizards lay eggs, they're gorging themselves on eggs. And they don't swallow the eggs whole. They actually will put their nose into the egg, open it, and they'll wrap a coil around the egg and squeeze the contents into their mouth. I'm sure I've never seen it. I'm never going to see it, but man, what a sight that must be to watch these guys in action. So that's your northern scarlet snake. Absolutely stunning snakes. They're only, a large one might be 16 inches, maybe. I'm sorry, I'm moving around. I'm not used to sitting like this. Let's move on to July. Oh, I should tell you too, the timbers are endangered, as are these guys, the corn snake. And this is a nighttime shot, so it's kind of hard to see with the light setup I got here. But I promise you, I love this picture. Corn snakes are endangered in New Jersey. They're very common down south. I picked a nighttime shot for this guy because I personally find a lot more of them at night. They're very nocturnal in nature, almost year round. You can find them during the day too. They're pretty mixed, but like my personal experience is I find them at night. I find them on roads. I make sure they get off roads and don't become snake jerky. Endangered, probably along with the timber, they have the least numbers in the pines, and that's just a guess. Just going off of, you know, anecdotes and what I do know. Nobody can tell for sure. Great snakes, 3.5. They get a little larger down south, but you could find maybe a 4-footer in the pines. I don't think I've ever found one 4 foot, probably close. Another good climber. They're actually the cousin to the black rat snake. They're in the same genus, and some people actually call these guys red rat snakes. So there it is in a pine tree, and we are going to move on to August. If milks weren't my favorite, this is my favorite. Eastern hognose snakes. These guys are the actors of the snake world. They have so many tricks to deter a predator from eating them or to scare them away. Predator, human, whatever. They hood up like cobras. They hiss loud. Sometimes you hear them hiss, and if you're familiar with snakes, you're not sure if it's a rattlesnake or a hognose if you haven't spotted it in the understory yet. Some of them, if you look at them the wrong way, will literally play dead. Others might take a little bit more handling and stuff. So I try not to make it happen because, number one, I mean, if we're just being selfish here, it's no fun. It's so good at acting dead that you might as well have found a dead snake. You pick it up, it'll hang on your finger with its mouth open, tongue out, drooling, probably after it crapped all over itself and puked up its last meal. And that's the one thing I don't like about having them play dead is you risk them wasting a meal. It's wasted life. The toad, you know, lost its life for nothing. Now the snake has to work to find another meal. So I try to avoid it at all costs. That said, it is an instinct for these guys and a defense mechanism that they have evolved to have. And sometimes if you come across one, you just can't help it. This guy was flipped under a tin. This is how I found him. This is how I left him. It may have actually been a girl. I can't really tell from the picture. But it's just a green color. These guys are so variable, and they can really, really be striking in the mountains and a little bit south here. In the pines, they're a little more earth-toned and drab, but that doesn't mean I love them any less. I've seen orange ones. I've seen ones with subtle hints of green and red and lavender in them. So you just never know what you're going to get with these guys. Milks and hogs, my absolute favorite snakes. Timbers would be there if you didn't have to worry about the venom factor. Next up, rough green snake. And I apologize, I have put a similar photo like this in the past, but I just love this, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you a story about my first, yeah, thanks. Hey, Beck. I'm going to give you a story about the first rough green snake I found. I had a hell of a time finding these guys. They usually hang out, they're arboreal in nature. They'll work their way through vegetation looking for spiders and sometimes dragonflies, insects really, whatever they can eat up in the vegetation, right? So during the day, I mean, you really have to sit there and, thank you, and really have to like look in the briars because they mix in with the thorn bushes. They're the same color, they're the same thickness, and you know, I guess that's what they evolved to be, right? To hide from predators. So it really is kind of hard to find them during the day unless you see them on a road. Which, my first one, finally, after a 6 or 7 year dry spell, was on a sand road after a thunderstorm in the summer. Just like people will tell you they find them. It was like storybook, right? So I'm going down this sand road and I see this thing laying there. And these guys periscope, kind of like this, with their head up, like this, right? And the rest of their body's on the ground and they're like this. I'm sorry, I can't break my bones to show you, but you get the idea. So I'm going maybe 35 down a sand road. I see this thing. I swerve a little bit to straddle it. It's only like 2 feet long. I'm so afraid the thing's going to dart off the road. I don't know their demeanor. I don't know how they act. I'm just thinking like, oh my God, there's my lifer green snake. Finally, after 6 years, and I'm going to lose it. So I hit my steering wheel, and I swear to you, my SUV went up on 2 wheels, and I almost flipped it. Turned around, peeled back to it, shooting sand everywhere, and the snake is sitting there looking like this. Didn't move an inch. Now, one of the cool things about them, another defense mechanism, is when they are spotted by what they perceive as a predator, they shake. They shake like that, like wind blowing the vegetation, right? It's a great trick, and it just helps them hide even better. But this guy was on the sand road doing this, and it was the coolest freaking thing, and I'll never forget it. It's one of those things I will be telling my grandchildren and probably telling all you guys 3 or 4 times. And that's why I love this picture, because it reminds me of that. This just goofy, really cool, really easygoing snake sitting there doing this, thinking it's hiding itself on the sand road. So that's my story about green snakes. Next up, eastern ribbon snake. Now we have 2 of these Thamnophis genus in snakes in the Pine Barrens. We have garter snakes, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. This is a ribbon snake, very similar. These guys are probably found around water a little bit more. They're very dependent on frogs, and they're more slender. One of the easiest ways I think to tell a garter from a ribbon snake is ribbons are more slender, their lines are definitely more clean, and they have, trying to do this while looking at the phone. See this white patch in front of the eye? This is very distinct on a ribbon, whereas garters, they might have it, but it's more like faded and blended. And if that's not enough for you, you can look at the jaw. They have a very clean jaw here. Garters, and I'm sorry I don't have a garter in this calendar because I only had 12 months, but garters will have along these, I'm gonna pull this up here. See these scales? They'll have black at the stripes of the scales. Very clean chin on a ribbon snake. And if you're in the Pine Barrens and you see one or the other, I think there's a lot more ribbon snakes than there is garter snakes. Next up, we're on November. We're almost there. Northern red-bellied snake. Why do they call them red-bellied snakes? You can see this very posed shot of the red belly. These come in a bunch of different colors. This is what I would call the cinnamon phase. They also come in gray, silver colors. This belly's really red. Sometimes they're orange, sometimes they're peach. But these are small snakes, maybe, this is probably too big. I guess you could get a large adult like this, but probably not. Harmless, slug eaters. They love slugs, they love other soft-bodied bugs. Not too often do you find these in the pines. I have one friend of mine who must live in a really great area for them that hikes a lot of them. But other than that, nobody seems to find many of them. And these are one of those snakes that are really, I feel, in the community are underappreciated. My good friend Kyle, and he actually mentored me years and years ago, saved me from some mistakes that I was going to make or did make, has always said, you know, if these guys were 3.5 feet long, everybody would want one. You know, they'd be heavy in the pet trade, but since they're smaller snakes, nobody seems to pay much attention to them. Better for them, I guess, right? Harmless. One of the cool things these guys do is if they feel threatened, and this doesn't happen often, it actually did happen one night when I picked one up off a wet road because I didn't want to get run over. I guess it was just scared and startled me. They curl their lip, and it's like a sneer, and they show their teeth, and they'll actually drag their head like along, you know, if you're holding it, they'll drag it along your hand, and you can feel the tooth kind of dragging along. And it doesn't hurt, it doesn't break skin, at least it's never broken skin on me, but I guess it's something that they've evolved to do for whatever reason. It's not gonna work on me, but maybe it works on something else. So that's red belly snake. And finally, before we get to the details on these calendars, the iconic northern pine snake. Everybody who comes to the Pine Barrens wants to see a pine snake. That's what they're there for. Corns you can find easily down south. Timbers you can find by the dozens if you know what you're doing in the mountains. Definitely not as easy in the Pine Barrens, but pine snakes, while they are found in other areas of the eastern United States, are easiest, and I say that with big time quotes, easiest in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. They are a threatened species. There are a lot of them. I once read a stat, and my numbers may be off, but I feel like I'm somewhat close. Pines spend about 10% of their life above the sand. So you could be walking next to them, over top of them, whatever. There's a lot out in the pines. Finding them is a different story. As much time as I spent out in the pines this year, I found 4 of them. 4. So, I have a story about a pine. It's one of my favorite stories of the year. I had a group of guys, great guys I know, that have been in the herping community for years. You probably know some of the names. They came out to the Pine Barrens. It was like one of these trips that you just dream of taking. You know, my one friend hadn't been there in 35 years, Matt Cage, if you guys know him, hadn't been there in 35 years. Last time he herped there was with his father, who was also a pillar of the herp community. Great guy, just a great family. Matt came out, and there was John Edward and John Burris and Tim Warfel and Mike Pingleton, right? I'm sure you guys know these names if you're in the community. If you're not, just bear with me because I have a great story. I love all you guys. This story's about Mike because this was one of my favorite moments of the year, and I really appreciate the chance to be there when it happened. So I'm going to put things into perspective. I'm going to put this down for a minute. So you guys know me, right? You see me travel. I've been to 10 countries now. I know I'm not like a world traveler where I'm going every other weekend. But when I go out, I herp my ass off, right? So you see all the frogs and snakes and salamanders and lizards that I've found all around Latin America and in South Africa, right? All that said, if you think I have a lot of herps, I keep them all in the database. I just this year passed over 500 herps. Big deal for me. It's great. I'm a numbers geek. I don't chase them, but I enjoy looking at stats. When I topped 500, I was absolutely thrilled. I'm like, oh my God, how did I found 500 herp species in my life, right? I say this because Mike was with us, and Mike has found 1,100 herp species in his lifetime, probably more now. This was back when they visited back in May or June, I can't remember. Anyway, so I just wanted to give you my stats so that you could compare. This guy, Mike, has found more than double than me, right? So here we go. They come out to the Pine Barrens. They tell me their number one target is a pine snake. I'm just putting my head down because I know nothing is a guarantee in the Pine Barrens. We herped. Their trip was going great. They slowly built a small list of good snakes. That's just the way it is in the Pine Barrens. You're never going to have an incredible day. But they were having a good trip. I got off of work on a Tuesday and told them I'd spend the whole day with them, right? I believe John Burris was the herper who found the pine snake. Didn't matter. We were all there. Everybody's fine, right? He just was fortunate enough to flip it. So way to go, John. But so we're all, just hooting and hollering and having a good time, and people are taking pictures, and everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe this weight is off. Well, maybe this is just me. I'm like, oh, this weight is off. I just felt relief. I was just like so happy these guys got to see him. I did not want them going home without their number one target. But I'm going to get to my story with Mike. So Mike Pingleton, who has 1,100 herp species, has never seen a pine snake. And he says to me, we're talking, and he goes, he's looking at the snake, and he's like, I looked at this snake when I was 12 years old in a field guide. And here I am, 62 years old, and I finally have seen one in the wild. That to me is the reason I do this. Like, that is the treasure. That is the hunt that these people are after. Mike has seen 1,100 species. But like to be there for that when he got to see his first wild snake was a magic moment. It was, there's no other way to describe it. It was one of my favorite moments of the year. And I really appreciate, going out with those guys. So that was my story about the pine snake, one of my favorite moments of the year. So that's what I'm going to do. I have 11 other calendars. I'm going to tell stories. I won't have as many stories about some of these things, but the Pine Barrens are a place that is near and dear to my heart, and I'm out there all the time. So I could probably go through this calendar 20 times and give you a different story every time. So we're going to do this. I'll probably do one every day or every other day, depending on my schedule. But now, how do you get one of these? I take payment 3 different ways: PayPal, Venmo, or you can send me a check. I will put all the details in the description. You can message me on Facebook, message me on YouTube, message me on Instagram. I will help you. I also look forward to doing these because a lot of the people I don't get to talk to throughout the year. So it's a way to, shoot the shit and sell some calendars. And like I said, all your money goes to a good cause. I will donate it all. I'm very transparent that way. When I hand over the money, I make sure they take a picture of me handing the check over. I want people to know what they have contributed to. So you have 3 different ways to pay me. They're $20 a piece. That is shipped to you in the United States. I cannot sell them outside of the country because the shipping just doesn't work. I've tried it, and nobody wants to pay $25 shipping for a $20 calendar. I have 12 different choices this year. People love them as gifts. I run a 5 for $90 deal, and so many people take advantage of that 5 for $90 because they're easy gifts. And look, if I've ever helped you, if I've ever answered any questions, if I've ever given you advice, and I message you, you are under no obligation. I don't do that so that you're going to buy calendars. I'm here to say it's the holiday season. A lot of people still use calendars. A lot of people need cheap gifts to give to people, right? If you're going to spend the money anyway, consider spending it on this, because I don't pocket it. It all goes into a conservation charity, probably rainforest, because I feel like that's our biggest bang for our buck. When you save land in the rainforest, you save more biodiversity anywhere. That's to be determined, though. Just know that your money is going to go to a good cause, and I'll have all the details probably in a day or two. I'm still deciding what I'm going to do with it. So that's my spiel. That's my story on the snakes of the New Jersey Pine Barrens. If you guys like this, please, give it a like, comment to me if you have any follow-up questions, whatever. I need to know if I'm doing this all for naught, or if you guys actually are interested in this. It's a new idea of mine. I have a good time talking animals, so I can sit here and talk to nobody. I can talk to the wall about it. But, if you guys want to hear it, I'm glad to tell you. Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate your support every year. So many people have supported in this, and the repeat support it's just, to count on you guys is great, and you've really made a huge difference. Whether it's one calendar, or I've had people buy all 12 and just give them out. One more thing before I go. I didn't bring it up here. I should have. I have large framed prints, right? And the printing company a few years ago raised my prices, so I had to get a little creative. So I also offer a raffle where if you put $5 into the raffle, when I get 50 raffles, I draw a name out of a hat, and you win a free frame picture. It's like 18 by 24. I promise I'll put them in the next videos. I'm prepared. And you can choose whatever you want. You can tell me, hey, show me your pine snakes. Show me your bay-breasted warblers. Show me your favorite lion pictures from Africa. What you guys know what I've seen, and if you don't, just ask questions. If you win that raffle, I will work with you until we find a photo that you like. I'll go back and forth with you 20 times. I want you to be happy with it. We'll find a photo that you like. I'll print it up, framed, delivered to you, ready to hang on your wall. So when you're putting your calendar order in, keep that in mind. If you want to be entered in the raffle, it's $5 extra. You can buy 1 entry for $5. You can buy 10 entries for $50. Whatever you want to do, it's all going to a good cause. So just keep that in mind, and I'm sure I'll remind you, because we actually had 4 winners last year, and it was cool to pull the raffles out and work with people on what they wanted, and then ultimately mail it to them and see it up on their wall. It's really neat. So that's it, guys. I could keep going on forever. We're going to do number 2, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Halloween. Maybe Sunday. Definitely by Monday we'll do number 2, and then we'll do a few more next week, and we'll work through all 12 of these calendars. I'm going to post this after I sign off. If you have any questions, message me. If I've missed any questions, I apologize. The camera's a little far away from me. I will get on it, and I will answer everything. And everybody, just have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. And thanks for watching. If you have any recommendations or advice for me here, let me know. I take constructive criticism well. My feelings do not get hurt. Have a good one.